Hi, you are watching SightsIn Plus, and this is Romesh Srivastava. Please do subscribe the channel for the HR news, for HR updates and conversation with the top-notch CHROs, thought leaders, and business heads. Today, we are going to explore the rising trend in employer background verification. And joining us, a visionary business leader, Mr. Ajay Trehan. He is the CEO and founder of AuthBridge. Ajay, welcome to SightsIn Plus. Very first, I would like to know
Thank
that what
you.
are the evolving trend in employer background verification when we are talking about the advancement in technology, when we are talking about also the rise in gig economy, and working models are also already evolved. We are working in a hybrid work models and remote working.
Thank you so much, Romesh ji, for inviting me over for this session, and really nice to see you once again. It's been a long time. So employment background screening, like any other industry, is undergoing a significant transformation currently because of multiple reasons. One, the new technologies that are coming in the world, and we've all been talking about artificial intelligence and how it can be used and misused. And secondly, customer expectations are also changing very, very rapidly now compared to what it used to be earlier. And part of that is because of rampant digitization of processes that happened immediately post the COVID phase. COVID literally forced a lot of organizations to turn digital and start looking at all of their HR processes to digital. Now, when that happened, obviously there was a need to move a lot of processes which were conventional in nature in the past, pretty much like employment background screening, also to digital. So that has brought another significant factor on, because of which the business has transformed. Then the whole future of work, the way employees are engaging with organizations is changing. The hybrid work culture and the gig workforce model. These are two new models that have emerged as very strong models in the whole, employment ecosystem. And these models introduce some very different kind of challenges. So all of these things have resulted in a completely new picture to employment background screening. And organizations like us, which have been, we've been there in this business for over 20 years now. We've been doing this, you know, over and over again for over close to about to 3,000 customers today. Um, so being at the forefront of this whole space, technology and innovation is kind of just imperative for us to adopt. And it's been very interesting to bring these transformations in our own ways of doing things, so that we could continue to be aligned and grow rapidly with the industry.
So, Ajay, we have also seen earlier a report, and this report was by the AuthBridge, that there is an increase, a rise of around 44% discrepancies. I think this was published in 2024. And apart from this, if
Yeah.
you see, there is also rise, there is also increase in the deepfake resumes and identity fraud when we are moving to the remote hiring. How do you see what kind of the cases generally you see with the deepfake resume and identity fraud, and how the this background verification and how the leaders can overcome with this kind of the challenges?
So a couple of things on the challenges which remote hiring got into the whole hiring processes. One is impersonation. Um, One person coming in for an interview and and a different person joining. That's a problem that AuthBridge solved a long time back by creating a interview or an impersonation platform where we are looking at facial and voice biometrics of the candidate during multiple interviews that the candidate goes through, and then compare that with the final voice and face of the candidate who joins to make sure that it's the same person going through the journey. Also, because of the availability of technology for us to be able to do a lot of these checks digitally, customers have started coming to us to do pre-verification at the stage of resume screening itself. historically, background screening has been done after offer. And there were some customers obviously who would do just pre-offer stage, but mostly after the offer was rolled out. Now, because of the digital processes and also availability of data, a lot of our customers are expecting us to be able to do a background check right at the point of a candidate applying for a job. So we have things like identity checks, digital employment verification, digital address verification, which is now being done right at the applicant stage. So that itself is changing, the whole landscape of employee screening. So we've seen high discrepancies, like you mentioned in our last year's trend report. We saw increase in, the percentage of discrepancies that we were finding in resumes. We are continuing to see a very similar trend in this year also. I mean, in the last 3 or 4 months that we've seen screening, despite the fact that some industries are facing a slowdown, there are many other industries that are where the hiring growth is continuing. The hiring is continuing to grow quite rapidly, and we are seeing a lot of resumes, a lot of people with fake resumes flocking into those industries, and uh, and we see high discrepancy rates because of all of these reasons, whether it is impersonation of the candidate, whether it is creating a resume which is a complete fake, that's usually caught at the time of verification of antecedents, or quick and digital verifications like identity, face, address, and employment.
I think I was reading somewhere that alternate data that is also helping somewhere to identify this kind of the resumes and this kind of the personalities people. So what is the alternate data and how it is helping to overcome this kind of the challenge, the fake resumes and identity fake identity.
So alternate data has been historically used by financial institutions to look at customers who probably are likely to commit fraud or likely to become NPAs in future. Uh, uh, and this alternate data is basically looking beyond the usual data. So we tend to, similarly in the employment screening space, it's a new advent, it's a new area where we tend to look at data points beyond just what is obvious. For example, we built intelligence around companies that we know potentially could be fraud, right? So while we have to, while we're screening the candidate, we tend to look at the nature of companies. We tend to look at, what kind of regions these people are coming from. There are alternate data sets available related to the mobile number, for example. There are ways to look at, where all or in what kind of e-commerce platforms this mobile number appeared, right? So we can from there map multiple addresses and do those addresses match with the address the candidate is stating as a part of his background check process. So a lot of those alternate data sets therefore come into play. So yes, it's a very early stage of using alternate data for employment background screening, and for us also it's a constant battle because customers are now beginning to ask for one click kind of verification. They're saying we don't want to spend too much time, and candidate doesn't have too much patience to fill a very long form. So can you guys, collect minimum possible information from a candidate and still be able to do his background check? So that's where alternate data comes and plays a very big role, and that's what we are trying to slowly and steadily build. It's a very early stage right now. We also have to be cognizant of the Data Protection Act and privacy regulations. So keeping all of that in mind, there are alternate data sets that are being developed or thought through to be able to do background checks faster and yeah, more
No, no,
efficiently.
absolutely, absolutely. Social media, I think that is also helping somehow with the alternate data to getting some
Yeah.
behavioral
So
patterns, this kind of.
yeah. Social media checks are a little complicated to carry out because I may or may not be disclosing the social media handle that I am using to carry out, to do whatever I want to do in my personal time. So that becomes a little bit of a complicated check. though there are technologies available to be able to do extensive data mining on social media, but they're expensive, and that makes the whole background check process very, very expensive. So we have customers who expect us to do extensive social media mining when they're hiring people at senior levels in the organization. So normally tend to follow that process at senior executive hiring. At the mid-level or junior level, that's usually avoided, and it's kind of hard to even run that process.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I would like to move another very important trend that is also the continuous background monitoring kind of real-time identity check as specific industries. If you see with the health care and logistics, BFSI in this industry, there's a demand for the real-time identity check. How do you see this trend and how you are supporting?
So, Ramesh, there are two things that you just mentioned. One is real time, second is on continuous, right? So, real time is usually at the time of onboarding the candidate. So, as I mentioned earlier, there are some checks which are done within a few seconds. But then there are certain industries, like you mentioned, healthcare, banking, and financial services, and even certain gig economy companies that expect us to do a background check or on their employees even after they have joined them. So, you may be hired when at the point when you hire somebody, he may not have any criminal or a litigation record. But after his joining you and he started working with you, he may have got involved in a litigation. How do you get to know about that as an organization if the employee has not disclosed it? So that's where, we come into play. So for the employees that they expect us, they tell us, we keep a continuous watch on their social media, we keep a continuous watch on their litigation history. And if there is anything negative that comes up, it is immediately highlighted to the customer for them to take an action on their employee if the findings that we have are not aligned with their internal policies. So typically in continuous checks, we do social media checks, we do criminal record checks, we do address checks also sometimes, and in traditional industries we also do drug tests. So particularly in some financial services industries, for certain cohort of employees, they do drug tests from time to time, and these are mostly surprise checks that are done to make sure that the whole entire workplace is drug free.
If you look at, you also mentioned one-click kind of the digital onboarding kind of. So, what is this one-click digital onboarding, and how it is helping into the smooth hiring, and also sometimes to providing the good experience to the candidate?
In past, Rameshji, what happened was when I'm applying for a job, I would fill a very long form, right? It'll be hundreds of fields, name, education background, employment background, etc., etc. But now with advent of the data being easily available through multiple sources, some of them government and some private repositories, and second, AI, artificial intelligence being available, we don't have to get the candidate to fill a very long form. We just ask candidates to upload a set of documents that we are asking for, and our AI engines automatically read those documents, extract the data, populate the form, and then make sure that whatever data is being filled in the form is valid. Whatever is invalid, or we are not sure that it aligns with the databases that we have at the back, those are the only things that the candidate is asked to correct, or let us know that it is correct. So, the whole candidate experience, therefore, on our onboarding platforms like iBridge becomes extremely smooth, and the process of form filling is also just a few seconds.
And Ajay, as we discussed earlier, that the gig economy that is also on rise, apart from your other workforce, a lot of Gen Zs are there, and another workforce, Alpha Gen Zs, they are also joining the workforce right now. How do you see, especially the gig economy, if we talk about, because that is a large number generally, sometimes the organizational hire. So how the onboarding of this gig economy how we can expedite this and with the employee background verification as well.
Yeah. No, very good question, Romesh. I'll give you a real example. So we have a client where they onboard drivers across India. Now, earlier, they used to, the process used to be very manual, where they would ask the driver or potential gig worker to give a copy of the documents, and somebody would do data entry sitting from the client office, and they would send an Excel sheet to us, and we would verify. And it used to take a lot of time. Today, it's very, very simple. We have a integration with the client's own driver management application. The driver just takes a photograph of his Aadhaar, PAN, and driving license and uploads it on the link that the client provides to them. We automatically, using artificial intelligence, read these documents, verify these documents, and based on the information we collect from these documents, we do a litigation and a criminal record check, which typically for most gig workers is very, very important. We also have built a repository of gig workers who have been involved in negative activities in the past and therefore were asked to leave from their respective organizations. We instantly check their data of the new incoming gig worker against the negative repository we have, and immediately inform the customer if there is any kind of a match with the previous negative record, or if the background check is failing because of either a fake identity or a negative criminal record or whatever. So it's done instant, literally in a matter of minutes, that we report back to the customer. And in gig workers, unlike the conventional industries, ongoing background checks or continuous background checks are extremely important. So we keep a check on criminal records of or motor vehicle accident records of these people on an ongoing basis to make sure that if there's anything negative that could impact our client's reputation, we highlight it to the client.
Yeah, so for the gig economy, I think absolutely, because this is for the short period of time. So sometimes the companies avoid the employer verification, employee background verification, but it is very important, as you mentioned here. You have also shared a very important case yesterday. Another, when we are talking about the remote working, so we have seen a lot of cases earlier about the moonlighting. And now, how do you see this trend of moonlighting in 2025? The trend is on the increasing side, that is the decreasing. How do you look for the verification part when it comes to the moonlighting?
Yeah, I mean, interesting. So while moonlighting was a big issue in the early days of COVID, and I remember in 2021, 22, when work started to happen after the first and the second wave of COVID were through, moonlighting became a very big issue, and we used to have a lot of clients coming to us asking us to do extensive moonlighting check, specifically for their existing employees. Now, once that was done for some of the large employers, many companies have now incorporated the dual employment check or moonlighting check as a part of their hiring and ongoing checks. So it's now become a part of their standard operating procedure. So every candidate for some of these large companies, when he is being background checked at the pre-offer stage, we check whether in his last 2 years or 3 years he was working with multiple employers at any point in time simultaneously. And then on an ongoing basis, like I mentioned, the ongoing checks. In the ongoing check, also we check whether he's moonlighting with anybody else at the same time while he's employed with the customer. So yes, so it's now become a part of the standard operating procedures of some of these customers, unlike past where this used to be a standalone thing. And the trends continue to be bad, though it's much better than what they were earlier. The percentage of discrepancies have come down on the dual employment side because employees are more comfortable, more aware of the companies doing a dual employment check, and hence they are more careful about these things. So I think a lot what we've seen, Rameshji, in the background screening world is also about creating a deterrence for the employees. Sometimes the moment an employee The moment an applicant knows that you are doing background check of this employee before he joins you, and he knows there is something negative in his resume, he will not join you. He will not even come for an interview because he knows he's most likely going to get caught by the background screening partner that's working with the client. So yeah, so it becomes a deterrence, and so that also helps, in the reduction of discrepancies at the client end, so which also makes sure that they're not wasting too much of their own time and energy in interviewing candidates who will potentially fail a background check later.
Absolutely. And discrepancies, you also reminded me when generally we see what kind of the discrepancies, maybe with the career gaps, people are hiding their career gaps, and sometimes the employers, the tenure with the company. So that is also not very clearly mentioned on the resume, and this kind of the discrepancies, that is also very general. How do you see what kind of maximum discrepancy to see currently in 2025?
Employment continues to be the highest, discrepant check, most discrepant check. And that's traditionally been the most discrepant check. And now with employment also being done digitally using alternate data like EPFO data, etc., it's throwing up those discrepancies much earlier, and the volume of those discrepancies also, as we see today, has gone up significantly. But typically, on an average, the discrepancies stay anywhere between 8 to 10%, which is quite substantial. It's pretty high. That means about 8 to 10% of the resumes get rejected because the person has either not disclosed unemployment, or the duration of employment that the person has mentioned in his resume does not match with what exactly did he do, or there was a dual employment. So those are the things that today, are the highest discrepancy forming checks for us.
Ajay, I think we have been trying to cover all the important points which are relevant for today's discussion. Anything else which is important and we did not touch here, would like to share?
Something that I normally like to end all my discussions like these is, the small and medium enterprises. See, we see background checks being adopted by large organizations. For most of them, it's become a part of their standard operating procedures. But I think, the mid-market companies suffer the most because of issues with hiring. Because in most of these mid-market organizations, teams are very, very small, and if there is one employee who's later found to be doing something wrong or was discrepant and he didn't disclose, or there was improper background check done at the early stages, the impact on the business can be quite significant. And obviously, the smaller the organization, the impact on the business is higher. So I normally want to end the note by saying the small and medium enterprises must do background checks. Extremely important for them to incorporate this. Even if you're hiring people through references, or you feel that you already know the person through a friend or whatever, still do a basic background check, because skipping that process could impact your business quite significantly later otherwise.
So absolutely, I agree with you. Background verification, this is not just a process, this is also deterrent, so that you can reduce the discrepancies, and the people, those who are already not qualifying your criteria, they wouldn't apply. So that is also a kind of deterrent. Thank you so much, Ajay Trehan, for joining us and sharing your wonderful thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Romesh. Thank you for inviting.